I'm now joined on the line by Ken Anderson in our special This Week look on iconic sporting entertainment heroes. We're delighted to be joined on the line by Ken, the one and only Mr. Ken Anderson. And Ken, I was just looking back there on some information and researching about you, and starting back in your earlier life as growing up, you really excelled at swimming and track and field. And was that a sort of career that was beckoning or prospering for competing in Olympics, or?
Oh no, I actually sucked at track and field. I had fun doing it, but I was, I tried my hand at pole vaulting because it was dangerous and it was exciting and it looked cool.
Yeah.
I just never could get the hang of it. But I guess, it just, I did stuff that I wasn't necessarily comfortable doing, and that's sort of been the story of my life. Is I try to go for things that seem unattainable and try to make them happen.
And Ken, you served in the US Army and you're a former personal trainer as well. Was that always the ambition to serve in the US Army? And how did you go from that to wind up pursuing a wrestling career? Were you always, growing up as a kid, were you always a fan of those back in the 80s of Hulk Hogan and Andre the Giant? Were you a massive fan growing up? And what made that sort of dream become a reality?
I actually was not a wrestling fan growing up.
Right.
And when I happened to have a few family members who were in the active military, and I always had a certain level of respect for it, and I sort of always had this itch to scratch, to go into the military, to go to boot camp and be tested and pushed, and the way that the drill sergeant talked to you, I wanted that to occur. I wanted it to happen just to see how I could overcome. And then it was right after I graduated from boot camp and AIT that a friend of mine introduced me to pro wrestling, and then it was like when I finally realized what I had been missing out on for so many years, I went crazy, and that's all I could think about. That's all I could do was talk about wrestling at work with my buddies, and then I quickly found a wrestling school in Green Bay, and I got trained, and the rest is history.
Yeah, and it was a sort of a rapid sort of growth within 5 years, roughly, in the developments and the development wrestling, and you were signed up by the Ohio State, the WWE tertiary, and it was there you came across Paul Heyman, and it really sort of things rapidly took off for you with the day you met Paul Heyman.
Paul Heyman is a large part of the reason why I'm talking to you, why you even wanted to talk to me in the first place. Because he, I was always a big fan of Paul's. I was a big fan of ECW. And then I was telling some of my students the other day that I tried for 5 or 6 years to get into the WWE. Just tried. And all I could think was, I just want a job. I just want to be there. I just want to do it. But when I finally did get there, I was so happy that it had taken me 6 years to do it, because I had completed the necessary steps to get garnering the knowledge, so that when I got there, I was super comfortable.
Yeah.
And a guy like Paul Heyman was able to say, hey, you got something. I want to exploit it. Let's work together.
Yeah, and I suppose, Ken, we all know some wrestlers are amazing attributes in relation to their abilities, in relation to high-flying moves. We always see those lucha libre sort of moves off the top rope. But what struck me is in relation to acting ability and the importance of being able to act on screen and act in front of a live audience. Did you have that sort of background growing up in relation to acting?
That's what I really wanted to do when I was a kid growing up. I wanted to be an actor. I remember the first movie that I recall seeing in the theater with my mother was E.T. And I remember turning to my mom and saying, I want to be Elliot. How do I be Elliot? And she was like, oh, it's really hard to do that, and you have to know the right people, and you have to live out in Hollywood, and all this stuff. And always sort of grew up thinking, no, it'll never happen, but I loved it. I loved performing for people. I would get my neighborhood friends together, and we would put on like little plays, and when I got my hands on a video camera, finally, there used to be these giant monsters that you'd put on your shoulder.
Yeah.
We'd write little short stories and film them, and that's really what I always wanted to do. And sort of today, I try to teach my students at the academy here that acting is just as important as learning the wrestling moves.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, we tell stories of good versus evil, and we want people to go on this emotional roller coaster that we're taking them on. In order to be able to do that, you have to be a believable actor to some degree.
Yeah.
And I think that the more believable you are as an actor, the more believable you are as a wrestler. I mean, like, first person that I ever saw that like really turned my head was Stone Cold Steve Austin, because he was such a good actor. And, like, the best actors don't look like they're acting; they're just being themselves. And he was so good at being realistic. I felt like wrestling had sort of been this cartoony, thing in the past, and when he got on the scene, it was like, this is real. This other stuff is, scripted or a little campy, but this right here, this is legit.
And Ken, if I can talk to you about the character creation, and first of all, the character Ken Kennedy, Mr. Kennedy in the WWE. But when you're going to be brought up to SmackDown, you're going to be debuted in that. The actual character itself, how long does that process take to make? Do you have an idea in your mind? Do you go to script writers, they say, listen, this is the idea of the character we want to portray. He's going to start off maybe as a heel, and he's going to produce this sort of way to the audience. And do you get to practice that much, or is there a certain character thrown at you from the start, and then you can develop and play around with it as you get more and more respect?
Yeah, I think everybody sort of has a different story in that regard. For me, I never wanted to be like a character, like specific. I didn't want to be a milkman or whatever, like a newspaper delivery or, like some people have very specific gimmicks and stuff. I never wanted to do that. I was always drawn to characters like The Rock and Stone Cold Steve Austin and Hulk Hogan, who just didn't seem to be like characters or gimmicks. They were just like very colorful versions of themselves. And that's sort of what I always strive to do. But, when you're at OVW, now it would be NXT, your head is just constantly churning, trying to come up with what's something that I can take to TV, what's something that they'll bite on, what's something that WWE is interested in. And the cool thing is being that you're at NXT or OVW or whatever it is, you're in a community of people that are like-minded, so everybody's just thinking the same exact way. So like, you might have a great idea, but it doesn't apply to you, but it applies to your buddy. Hey man, let me tell you about this, I got this character idea for you, and then you can sort of explore that, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, obviously.
Yeah, and Ken, I suppose you get to the SmackDown, you become part of the roster in 2005, and just tell me about, in relation to that, your first live show. You go from Ohio Valley Wrestling, where there's probably maybe, I'm just speculating now, you probably have 5,000 or 6,000, maybe even less, to go to a live SmackDown of a Friday night or a Thursday night back then in front of 30 and 40,000, and you probably, it's live, you can do your rehearsals at the back in relation to promos and stuff like that, but nothing beats the sort of live thing. And is there a case where there have been talented wrestlers there and who've come and just froze under the spotlight, and how do you sort of get yourself into that you can block out everything that's going around?
I think for me, it was all the experience that I had. The 6 years of rejection, the 6 years of trying different things and having them not work, and then trying different things. And by the time I got there, by the time I was standing behind that curtain ready to go out to my very first SmackDown taping, I felt like I was ready, I was comfortable. And I think that's a testament to, like, just hard work. If you put in the work, to actually doing it for a living, it's easy. It's just fun from there.
And Ken, I suppose we all know your promo with the microphone coming down from the ceiling, and was that I noticed that actually you announced basketball games growing up, so that was probably an idea that was always in your sort of head that you wanted to do, was very different. And I see there was something there in relation to Howard Finkel in relation to that, and how did that sort of come about for the Mr. Kennedy character?
That was nothing that I had ever thought about. That hadn't even crossed my mind. I remember when I first got down to OVW, Dave Lagana pulled me aside, and just kind of the writers would come down every once in a while and just spend a day or a few days watching and just seeing how everybody was doing and try to get some ideas for some new characters. And Dave said, I want to do something with your voice. There's something there, because I was always very, I was good at projecting, and I had this sort of, drill sergeant quality to my voice, I guess, when I cut my promos and stuff.
Yeah.
And, because that's really where the inspiration for that was. The way my drill sergeants used to talk to us in boot camp was the source of endless hours of comedy and stories between, my battle buddies and I. And then it sort of was the inspiration for me moving forward. But, he said, there's something I want to do with your voice. But it wasn't until Paul Heyman got down to OVW, and he was there for a few weeks, and then one night he said, tonight I want you to go out there and announce yourself. Put the ring announcer on, tell him he's a piece of crap, tell him you can do it better, and then do it better. And I just did it, and I came back to the curtain, and all the boys in the back were like, that was awesome. And then, that's when you know you've got a winner. Because I always feel like the wrestlers are the harshest critic.
Yeah.
Because we've seen everything. You see a million different gimmicks done, or you've seen the same gimmick done 27 different times, and it's like, when you see something that really catches your eye, it catches on.
And Ken, you've now made it. You're in the WWE, where every wrestler wants to be. You're there. You're a month or two in. You're after competing you won your first United States Championship. Are you there adjusting into the lifestyle, the life cycle, the publicity that comes with it, the amount of travelling you have to do worldwide in relation to your own personal life? I'm sure it must be a major sort of culture change that in relation to family, close friends, all these things that you grew accustomed to seeing on a day-to-day basis, that when you become a WWE superstar, that you have to make all those sacrifices. And was it difficult early on?
It was not difficult for me at all. I felt like I just slipped right into it. And the thing is that the 4 years that I was at WWE are a blur to me. They really are. There's a lot of things that I've done in my career that were really cool that I barely have recollection of, because you're in one town, you do it, you're on to the next town. You're in that town, you're doing a phone interview, then you're off to the gym, then you're to the building, then you're, it's just go constantly. And you're constantly committing things to memory and then dumping it. Committing to memory, dumping it. It's like taking tests in high school. You don't ever retain any of that knowledge, because all you're worried about is committing it to memory, just long enough that you can take the test, pass the test, and then get on to the next thing.
And Ken, we all hear stories about newcomers breaking onto the WWE and SmackDown, and they're probably hot property for 1 or 2 weeks, and then probably they start to disappear, and it's probably they have to earn the respect of the elder statesmen and the elder wrestlers. And I suppose with some of your iconic feuds with The Undertaker, and stepping into the ring with The Undertaker and meeting him backstage and doing your rehearsals and tryouts for the week and planning the sort of show and stuff like that, is it hard to get that man's respect straight off? And when you get that, do you know that, right, I'm established here and I'm going to be a mainstay in put? Or is there always sort of matches like that where you're going to be tested, a blood-in sort of match, to see if you can cope with it?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's always that thought in your head, are these people whom I respect going to respect me in return?
Yeah.
And I think the way think the best way to go about doing that is just be a good person, be a hard worker, and just be respectful.
Yeah.
Treat other people the way that you want to be treated. And I think the rest of everything just sort of falls in place from there. I will say there is a little bit of, I always say like, it's hard work, but there is a level of luck too, because there's tons of people who work really, really hard. And for whatever reason, they get the boss on a bad day, and the boss doesn't happen to like what he sees that day. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Ken, I suppose in relation to matches and durability, you probably go from a SmackDown match or a Raw match where it's probably 10 minutes in length to a big massive pay-per-view, say wrestling the likes of Shawn Michaels or Edge or John Cena, and to all of a sudden they're 30-minute matches, and the sort of durability and the wear and tear in the body in relation to putting on a show, putting on a match for 30 minutes rather than putting on a 5-minute match. How very different is that?
I actually prefer putting on the longer matches. They're easier on the body because you can have a slower build to the drama in your match. When you have 5 to 10 minutes, it's like you got to cram as much stuff in there as possible. You really don't, but it's sort of hard to break away from that idea in your head. If that makes sense, it's easier, in my opinion, to put together a 40-minute match, because you go out there and you get into it's just like sort of running a marathon where you have to pace yourself. And once you get into that groove and you start pacing yourself, then everything just starts clicking and pieces fall into place. However, if you're having a bad outing 5 minutes in, it's not going well. You have to, continue performing for another 30, 35 minutes. That sucks.
And Ken, I suppose we all know in relation to pay-per-views and main events, and I suppose we all know wrestlers are trained how to fall and how to fall properly. But take, for example, WrestleMania 23, you won the annual Money in the Bank ladder match, and in relation to ladders and heights and going up past 4 feet, 5, 6, 7 feet in the air, we see Jeff Hardy falling from 9, 10 feet in the air. You automatically run a risk there. Is there anything that can train the body from falling from such heights?
I think it's just willpower. It's just like how much your body is. Everybody has a different threshold for pain. Some people, can handle a very small amount of pain before they're disabled, and other people, for whatever reason, can seem to just destroy their bodies and get up and keep ticking. But, I don't think you can't practice falling through a table or anything like that. It's not something that, we practice at the academy. You don't practice chair shots. You don't practice stuff like that. It's something you have to do, and I personally feel like in those situations you get this rush of endorphins.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, for those people who have ever been in a fight before, you think it's going to hurt, but when you actually get punched, it doesn't hurt that much because you're just so amped up and ready to go. It hurts later, like the next day when you wake up and you get out of bed and your face is swollen. That's what hurts. But I think it's easier to do stuff like that when the adrenaline is pumping through your veins, and that adrenaline is coming directly from like a really hot crowd.
Yeah, and I suppose, Ken, was your time in the WWE, was there always concussion protocols where any time after a match you just felt a bit dizzy or lightheaded that you'd be taken straight away by a medic to get an assessment and stuff like that? Because we all know some of the falls and the extent of the endurance that you put your bodies through in relation to injuries and tears and stuff, and we read so much about concussions. I know an ex-wrestler, Christopher Nowinski, has done so much about it, and at that time, when you look back in it now, is it something you sort of worry about yourself, or?
It was something that we didn't even think about.
Right.
And I remember working Batista in the Great American Bash, and I got busted open. I ran my head directly into the post, the ring post, and hard. Like, I hit it really, really hard, split my head open, blood's pouring out of my head. And I just went to the back, I got stitched up, they didn't even put no as I'm training my students, that's something like, we have headgear here, we have crash pads. I want people to learn how to take the balls, do it properly.
Yeah.
And then we'll take the headgear off and stuff. And, you know, I'd rather not have people banging their heads off the canvas the very first outing, and then they're concussed and they can't do this.
Yeah, and I suppose, I suppose, Ken, the two highlights of your WWE career were winning the United States Championship and winning the Money in the Bank ladder match. And then you departed WWE for ventures new in TNA, Total Non-Stop Action. And was it a sort of, you had to rebrand and reinvent yourself, this time under your own name, Ken Anderson, but you got to keep many of the sort of props that you had in relation to your character, in relation to your microphone and stuff like that. And were you able to legally obtain those, or as a wrestler we sometimes know that wrestlers come from one show to the other and they can keep certain trademarks of their character?
Yeah, I wasn't allowed to keep the name. Obviously, it didn't go with the name, but I always felt like it's just a name. It's not like, you know, the WWE at one time was the WWF.
Yeah.
And while it was an odd transition, or, you know, it was a little awkward, but, you know, everybody knows it as the WWE now.
Yeah.
So it's just, and the thing was, is I kept doing the exact same thing when I went over to TNA. It wasn't like I had to totally reinvent the character or anything like that. I was just like, I changed my name from Kennedy to Anderson, and I kept doing the same thing.
And I suppose I talked to Eric Bischoff, and when he was speaking about his time in TNA in relation to coming in with Hulk Hogan, and I suppose this is only Eric's view now, it might be the view of anyone else, but he spoke of probably that his one big fall in he had with TNA was probably didn't really realise the potential of the product that they had at the time, and a relation that they'd be able to drive on. And do you feel that TNA could have done more and at its height at the peak to rival the WWE? I know in the last few years it sort of had its sort of difficulties, and the time that you were there was probably on the up and up. And do you think that the sort of a missed opportunity within TNA has missed?
Like, missed opportunity after missed opportunity after missed opportunity. It's sad. It's frustrating because if you look at the roster and the crew of people that have gone through and worked at TNA, I mean, it's just an incredible amount of talent, top names in the business that have gone through there. In my opinion, TNA was trying to be a carbon copy of the WWE instead of doing their own thing and finding out their own little special niche. You know, everybody always tries to copy the big dog instead of, well, what about the big dog? You know, WWE right now has to do family-friendly entertainment. They're PG.
Yeah.
You know, where's the company that takes it to a little more of an adult level? And I'm not talking porn and blood and guts, but like, you know, not afraid to drop an F-bomb every once in a while or something like that. And that to me is where they missed the boat.
And Ken, you won 2 World Heavyweight titles in your time with TNA, and you had sort of epic rivalries with Kurt Angle, Sting, Rob Van Dam, Abyss, even the new kids on the block, Ethan Carter. But one of the storylines that really intrigued me, and I remember watching it there for the time, was your storyline with Aces, an 8 sort of storyline. And that was something new that sort of intrigued me that wasn't done before the time. And I imagine as a character, seeing that script each week, it must have been very sort of fun to play this motorbike gang that has such a massive control. It almost felt like another NWO sort of opportunity.
Yeah, it was very fun. I was sort of skeptical at first because I am not a biker, but it was challenging to me that, you know, what can I do to play a character, you know, and show my acting chops a little bit, that kind of stuff. So, yeah, it was very fun, and I wish we would have done more with the Ace of the Eight stuff. I wish we could have done more, like, you know, backstage skits and things like that.
And Ken, I suppose, you know, know, sometimes when you fight wrestlers, they have sort of different wrestlers, they have sort of different attributes. If you fight someone like Rey Mysterio, you know he's going to go aerial, most of his skill sets are develops on ropes, and then if you fight someone like Kurt Angle or and Eddie Guerrero, it's all mat-based, or Dean Malenko, it's all mat-based wrestling, and the sort of stuff like that. I'm just going to ask you, what sort of, as a wrestler in entertainment, what sort of matches do you prefer? Do you prefer the sort of being involved in the Kurt Angle sort of matches where it's hold after hold, choke after choke, or do you prefer the non-stop Jeff Hardy, Rey Mysterio, where it's flying off ropes, full action, adrenaline sort of rush matches?
I really like both. I like it all. I think the thing about it just depends on how much time you're given. If you're given an appropriate amount of time, if you're given a short amount of time, it's harder to do the high flying, like quick, fast paced, spotty types of matches.
Yeah, and Ken, I recently I'm delighted to see you're giving back now. You've opened your own sort of wrestling school called the Academy in Minneapolis, and maybe for the last 2 minutes you can tell us a bit about that. If there's any sort of Irish inspiring sort of wrestlers, we had the last few years the likes of Sheamus and the likes of Becky Lynch, and have all made it their way onto the Finlay, have made it all from Ireland, have made it all the way into WWE. And if there was an Irish a wrestler who's moving to the States, or what would you tell them about your academy in relation to what they can learn and benefit from it?
We have tried to, on a very limited budget, try to sort of duplicate what the kind of experience you can get at NXT Performance Centers. In order to go to the NXT Performance Center, you have to be under contract by the WWE.
Right.
We train 5 nights a week here. The curriculum lasts, it's a 6-month curriculum. We train 5 nights a week, 4 hours a night, so it's 20 hours a week that you're getting. We cover everything. We cover your basic wrestling. We cover interviews, wrestling. We cover, presenting yourself to promoters. How do you market yourself to different promoters? How do you carry yourself? Etiquette in the business. I mean, we cover just about everything. We have a big projector screen, and we do a tape dissection. We have WrestleMania parties. We have pay-per-view parties here. It's really a big family, and we do have. Well, right now we've got a student from Chile who came over, and he was actually part of our first class, but he was only able to stay here for a month and a half. So he stayed for a month and a half, learned as much as he could, went back to Chile for a year, and now he's back. And it's amazing to see how much he has improved since he's gone. And to me, I had a pretty good career in the wrestling business. I'm fairly happy with the results. And now I'm able to take students that come to me with the dream and sort of help show them, well, here's how let's figure out a way for you to obtain that goal. And it's really cool to see them when things are clicking in their heads. And it's cool to see everybody backing everybody else and helping each other, lifting each other up. And I'm really excited. If anybody's interested, you can go to the academyprowrestling.com and check out. We have information there, or you can call or text us at +1 507 722 2776.
And Ken, finally, before I leave you, I know you travelled all over the world, city by city, in your time in the WWE. Have you any memories of ever coming to Ireland and being able to, an off day, being able to go around and see a bit of the unique what Ireland has to offer?
Every time that I've been to Ireland, I have sacrificed sleep. So that I remember one time, me, Finlay, Rey Mysterio, and I believe Batista went and toured. Oh, Tatanka too. We went and toured some castle right outside of Dublin.
Wow.
funny story. Like, I was over with TNA a few years ago.
Yeah.
And my friend Gunner
Yeah.
said, Ted, I want to go to an Irish pub. And I said, Gunner, they're just pubs here.
Ken Anderson, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you on the airways. If you look back on your iconic career that has spanned decade after decade from WWE to TNA, and it's great to hear that for a guy who's been through the industry and has seen it all, that you're now being giving back to the next generation. Ken, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you on the airwaves tonight, and we wish you all the best in your future endeavours. Thank you, mate.
Thank you very much.
Cheers, thank you.